The scent of something new arrives in a small box, possibility, sealed in glass and plastic. You unwrap it slowly, feeling the weight of formulation before you've read a single ingredient. This is the quiet luxury of free beauty samples, not the foil packets crushed at the bottom of shopping bags, but substantial trial programs that give you weeks to understand how a serum behaves on your skin, how a fragrance evolves across a workday, whether a texture becomes part of your ritual or sits forgotten on your counter. My name is Julian Thorne. I'm a sustainability consultant and fragrance curator specializing in ethical, non-toxic beauty products that deliver luxury experiences without the premium price tag or environmental cost. You're listening to Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. Quick heads up before we dive in. All the research, data, and writing you're about to hear comes from real people who've tested these products and verified every detail, but the voice delivering it is AI-generated. Just wanted you to know up front. If you've been listening for a while, thank you. Seriously, it means a lot. And if this is your first time here, I'm glad you found us. We put out new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering everything from ingredient deep dives to programs like this one that actually save you money. All right, let's jump in. In 2026, beauty brands have reimagined sampling. Full-size trials, refillable discovery sets, programs that deliver actual product volume, enough to assess longevity, sensitization potential, and whether that 0.5% encapsulated retinol genuinely resurfaces your skin or simply irritates it. These aren't bribes, they're auditions. The brands that offer them understand what dermatological testing has always shown. You need 28 days minimum to evaluate most active ingredients, particularly cell turnover accelerators and barrier-repairing lipid blends. Anything less is theater. What follows are 7 programs worth your time and shipping address. Each delivers enough product to make an informed decision. No foil packets, no single-use vials that oxidize before you finish them. Let's start with the Ordinary Full Regimen Discovery Set. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. It arrives in minimal cardboard with zero romance, exactly as you'd expect from a brand that treats formulation like engineering. 6 15-milliliter bottles spanning cleansing, exfoliation, hydration, and occlusives. Roughly 30 days of morning and evening application if you're using standard dosing. Pea-sized for serums, nickel-sized for creams. The formulations follow Decium's signature approach: single molecule focus, clinical percentages prominently displayed, textures that range from slippery to tacky depending on molecular weight. The niacinamide 10% plus zinc 1% serum has that characteristic slip-then-grab sensation as the dimethicone evaporates and the actives settle into your stratum corneum. The buffet peptide serum layers like silk over damp skin, but can pill if you rush your routine. These textural quirks matter. They determine whether you'll actually use a product consistently, which is the only variable that affects outcomes. What makes this program valuable? You're testing an entire protocol, not isolated products. You'll learn whether your skin tolerates daily 7% glycolic acid. Many don't, despite what Instagram suggests. Whether peptide complexes genuinely plump or just hydrate temporarily. And whether your barrier function improves or degrades under this level of active intervention. The kit sidesteps the common mistake of incorporating multiple actives simultaneously without baseline data, which is how most people end up with compromised moisture barriers that they then try to repair with the very products that damaged them. The request process requires creating an account and completing a skin assessment. Decium rotates these offers quarterly, prioritizing first-time customers. Shipping typically takes 7 to 10 days within North America. Next, the Sephora Beauty Insider Rewards Program. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. This functions differently. It's a points-based exchange system rather than a free trial, but if you've purchased anything through Sephora in the past year, you've accumulated the currency needed. 100 points, equivalent to around $100 purchase history, unlocks deluxe samples that contain 7 to 15 milliliters, sometimes more. The advantage here is curation specificity. You're not locked into a brand's vision of what constitutes a routine. Instead, you're selecting individual products you've been curious about. The Drunk Elephant C Firma Fresh Day Serum with its 15% L-ascorbic acid and ferulic acid stabilization system. The Biossance Squalene plus Vitamin C Rose Oil if you prefer lipid-soluble vitamin C derivatives that won't oxidize in your bathroom's humidity. The samples arrive in actual glass or high-quality plastic packaging, not foil, which matters for formula stability. L-ascorbic acid degrades rapidly when exposed to air and light. A pump bottle sample preserves efficacy far better than a pouch that oxidizes the moment you tear it open. You're getting a genuine trial of the product's performance potential, not a degraded version that was never going to work. The friction? Availability is inconsistent. High-demand samples, anything with bakuchiol, tranexamic acid, or polyglutamic acid in 2026, disappear within hours of restocking. You need to check the rewards bazaar regularly, which becomes its own form of labor. But if you're already navigating the broader landscape of how to glow up for free, this kind of strategic patience aligns with that philosophy. Redeem through your online account or in-store. Points never expire as long as your account remains active. Now let's talk about Versed Skin's free sample program with purchase. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. The brand operates on a generosity model. Every direct purchase includes a full-size sample of a complimentary product, not a deluxe miniature, full size. It's disorienting the first time it happens, like discovering extra money in a coat pocket. Order the Stroke of Brilliance Brightening Serum, that's 3% tranexamic acid, 1% kojic acid, 5% niacinamide, and receive the Baby Cheeks Hydrating Milk Toner or the Doctor's Visit Instant Resurfacing Mask, depending on current inventory. The sample matches your purchase intent. Brightening products pair with complementary acids and hydrators, never random selections that create routine confusion. The formulations themselves reflect Verst's positioning: clean without compromise on efficacy. The brightening serum contains acetylglucosamine at 2%, which works synergistically with niacinamide to inhibit melanosome transfer. This is the kind of formulation intelligence that used to cost 3 times as much. Manufactured in South Korea using the same labs that produce for Amore Pacific and LG Household and Healthcare, so you're getting K-beauty formulation standards without the import markup. The textural experience leans watery and fast-absorbing. The serums sink in within 30 seconds, leaving a barely there film that plays well under makeup or subsequent product layers. If you prefer that silky cushion sensation that announces "I've applied skincare," you'll find this finish too austere. But for anyone dealing with congestion-prone skin or humid climates, the lightweight architecture prevents the suffocating heaviness that breeds milia and closed comedones. Request at checkout. No code needed, it auto-populates. Minimum purchase usually sits around $30. Shipping is free on orders over $35. Moving on to Topical's Sample Society subscription. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. Topicals pioneered the hyperpigmentation-first skincare category, and their Sample Society program gives you the first box free. You cover shipping around $5. The box contains 7 to 10 milliliters of 3 products, enough for 2 weeks of twice-daily application. The star is typically the faded serum: 2% tranexamic acid, 2% niacinamide, 4% azelaic acid, plus kojic acid and licorice root extract. This multi-pathway approach to melanogenesis inhibition outperforms single-ingredient solutions, particularly for post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation in skin of color, which is Topical's primary focus. The clinical studies they cite aren't buried in footnotes, they're printed on the packaging, including the specific concentrations used in the trials versus what's in the bottle. That transparency remains rare in 2026. The texture sits somewhere between gel and cream, bouncy, almost marshmallow-like initially, then thinning as it warms against skin.
It dries down matte, which makes it ideal for morning application under SPF, but can feel slightly tight on dehydrated skin. If you're coming from occlusives or rich emulsions, this will feel sparse. Give it 3 days. Your skin adjusts. The program auto-renews monthly unless you cancel after the trial, which is straightforward through account settings. The full-size conversion rate must be high because this model only works if the product performance justifies the initial loss leader. The efficacy on dark spots is measurable. Expect visible fading of recent post-inflammatory erythema within 14 days, longer for established melasma. Sign up through the brand's website. The trial box ships within 3 to 5 business days. Next up, Kiehl's skincare consultation with full-size samples.
Walking into a Kiehl's location feels like entering an apothecary that happened to survive into the 21st century. Dim lighting, glass bottles, a consultation process that involves a skin analysis under magnification, and a brief but surprisingly thorough assessment of your current routine, which most people have never articulated aloud before. The consultant, usually an esthetician or someone with formulation training, recommends 2 to 3 products, then hands you full-size samples, 30 milliliter to 50 milliliter bottles that will last 6 to 8 weeks depending on application frequency. The Midnight Recovery Concentrate, that's evening primrose oil, squalene, lavender oil, comes in a 30 milliliter bottle with a dropper. The Calendula Herbal Extract Toner arrives in a 40 milliliter bottle. These aren't miniatures, they're the actual product in slightly smaller vessels. The formulations skew botanical heavy with strategic active integration. The Ultrafacial Cream contains glacial glycoprotein, sourced from Antarctic microorganisms that survive extreme cold by producing antifreeze proteins, and squalene at approximately 5 to 7% concentration. The texture is that perfect medium-weight emulsion that satisfies without suffocating, neither too rich nor too fleeting. It lacks the elegant sensoriality of French pharmacy brands, but compensates with reliable, unsurprising performance. The consultation requirement acts as gatekeeping, which means this program works best for people who can access a physical location and tolerate 20 minutes of face-to-face interaction. If you have social anxiety or live rurally, this isn't your path. But if you're uncertain where to begin and need someone to translate your concerns into ingredient targets, the investment of time yields more value than scrolling Reddit threads about whether you need retinol or not. Book appointments online or walk in during off-peak hours. Some locations are more generous than others. Urban flagships tend to offer larger samples. Let's talk about Youth to the People Reset Sample Kit. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. The brand built its reputation on kale-forward marketing that somehow didn't collapse into parody, mostly because the formulations performed despite the Instagram-friendly ingredient names. Their Reset Sample Kit includes 5 15 milliliter products spanning cleansing, exfoliation, hydration, and barrier repair. The Superfood Cleanser contains spinach, kale, and green tea, but more importantly, it's formulated at pH 5.5 to match skin's natural acid mantle, and it contains gentle sulfate-free surfactants, sodium cocoa glutamate and disodium cocoa glutamate, that cleanse without stripping. The difference is immediate if you've been using high pH foaming cleansers that leave your skin feeling squeaky clean, which is actually a tactile signal of damage. The Retinol plus Mandelic Acid Superfood Unity Exfoliant combines 0.15% encapsulated retinol with mandelic acid. That's an AHA with larger molecular size that penetrates more slowly, reducing irritation. This is entry-level retinoid strength, enough to initiate cell turnover if you're retinol naive, likely insufficient if you've been using prescription tretinoin. But as an introduction to the texture, the characteristic tingling, the temporary dryness that appears around day 5 to 7, it's perfectly calibrated. You're learning what your skin can tolerate before committing to higher concentrations. The kit's weakness? The sample sizes create pressure to use products quickly, which contradicts the slow introduction principle that makes retinoids safe. You'll be tempted to use the retinol exfoliant more frequently than the recommended twice weekly to avoid waste, which is how you end up with barrier compromise. Resist. Use what you need and gift the remainder if necessary. Request through their website with email sign-up, limited to 1 per household. And finally, Paula's Choice Discovery Kit. Check the show notes for a link to the current price. Paula's Choice 2% BHA liquid exfoliant is the product that launched 1,000 routines. 2% salicylic acid at pH 3.2 to 3.8, which is the sweet spot for keratolytic activity without excessive irritation. The brand's Discovery Kit includes this plus 3 other products in 30 milliliter sizes, a cleanser, an antioxidant serum, and a moisturizer. What distinguishes Paula's Choice from the earnest but sometimes unrefined indie brands flooding the market? Formulation maturity. These products were developed by cosmetic chemists who understand that pH matters as much as active percentage, that penetration enhancers need to be balanced against sensitization potential, that preservative systems can't create formaldehyde donors if you're marketing to the clean beauty segment. The Resist Intensive Repair Cream contains 0.01% retinol plus peptides and niacinamide, a conservative but synergistic combination that improves skin texture without the dramatic purging that alienates new users. The BHA exfoliant has that characteristic thin, slightly sticky texture. It doesn't feel luxurious, it feels functional. Some people find this refreshing. No olfactory manipulation, no silicone slip to mask what's happening beneath. Others miss the sensory pleasure that makes routines sustainable. If you fall into the latter category, you'll use this sporadically, and sporadic exfoliation is worse than none at all, because it creates irregular cell turnover that manifests as flaking and uneven texture. The free kit requires subscribing to their replenishment program, which you can cancel after the first order. The friction here is remembering to cancel before the next shipment, which arrives around week 6. Set a phone reminder. Order through the brand's website, first-time customers only. Now, a quick word about how we made our picks. These 7 programs earn their place through a specific filter. Substantive product volume delivered at 0 or near 0 cost. We excluded single-use foils, perfume samples that oxidize before you finish them, and free with $50 purchase schemes that negate the concept of free. Each program had to provide enough product for genuine efficacy assessment. Minimum 2 weeks of consistent use, preferably longer. We prioritized samples in air-restrictive packaging, pumps, sealed bottles over open jars or foil that compromise formula stability before you apply the first dose. The active ingredients needed to match concentrations used in clinical trials, not diluted contains retinol formulations that listed after 3 preservatives in the ingredient deck. We tested texture, finish, and layer compatibility. A sample isn't valuable if it pills under sunscreen or causes flashback under photography lighting. These aren't abstract concerns, but real barriers to incorporating new products. We considered sensitization potential, particularly for vitamin C and retinoid samples, where initial concentrations determine whether users graduate to effective dosing or abandon the category entirely after a negative first experience. Accessibility mattered. Programs requiring in-store visits scored lower than mail-based options, though we included one, Kiehl's, because the consultation component provides educational value that justifies the friction. We excluded limited geography programs and verified that sample requests actually fulfill within stated timeframes. Several brands advertise free samples but fulfill fewer than 40% of requests. Let's address some frequently asked questions. Are free beauty samples actually full-size products or just miniatures? Most free beauty samples in 2026 range from 7 milliliters to 50 milliliters depending on the program, which sits between deluxe miniature and full retail size.
Programs like Kiehl's and Verst offer genuine full-size products, while others like The Ordinary and Youth to the People provide 15 to 30 milliliter bottles that deliver 2 to 6 weeks of use at standard application rates, long enough to assess sensitization, texture preferences, and basic efficacy before oxidation or contamination compromises the formula before you apply the first dose. Unopened samples stored properly, cool, dark, away from humidity, maintain stability for 6 to 12 months for most water-based formulations, 12 to 18 months for anhydrous oils and balms, but only 3 to 6 months for unstable actives like L-ascorbic acid and retinol. Once opened, use vitamin C serums within 30 days, retinoids within 60 days, and peptide or hyaluronic acid formulations within 90 days. The smaller volume actually works in your favor. You'll finish before degradation occurs, unlike full-size bottles that oxidize halfway through. Do beauty sample programs sell your information to third parties?
Most established brands in these programs use your email for first-party marketing only, their own newsletters and promotional campaigns, but some, particularly Sephora and multi-brand retailers, share anonymized purchase behavior data with partner brands for targeted advertising. Read the privacy policy before submitting your address. Look for phrases like, "We do not sell your personal information," versus "We may share data with trusted partners." Programs like The Ordinary and Paula's Choice have stronger privacy commitments than rewards platforms that monetize customer data. Can you request multiple free samples from the same brand? Most programs limit requests to one per household or email address within a 6 to 12-month period, enforced through address matching algorithms and email verification. Attempting to circumvent this using slight address variations, adding Unit A or alternate spellings, usually fails because fulfillment systems normalize addresses. Some brands, like Sephora, allow multiple sample selections but deplete your points balance, so it's self-limiting. Kiehl's consultations technically allow repeat visits, but consultants recognize returning customers and may offer smaller samples after the initial generous introduction. Here's what it comes down to. The scent fades first, then the texture memory. What remains is whether you reached for the bottle again, whether it integrated into the sequence of motions that bookend your day. Free beauty samples aren't about hoarding product. They're about informed elimination, crossing off the formulas that don't suit your skin's specific pH, lipid profile, and sensitization thresholds before you've invested money or cabinet space. They're about discovering that you actually prefer watery essences to creamy emulsions, or that your skin metabolizes retinol better in squalene suspension than dimethicone matrices. The programs above represent the rare intersection of brand confidence and consumer respect. They give you enough product to form an opinion, enough time to observe how your skin adapts, and enough transparency to understand what you're testing. If you're building a routine from scratch or troubleshooting while your current one isn't delivering results, this is where you begin. Not with full-size purchases based on influencer codes or algorithm-fed ads, but with deliberate, methodical sampling that reveals what actually works on your face. For those approaching skincare more holistically, learning how to do facial massage at home complements any new product introduction. Manual lymphatic drainage improves circulation and can accelerate the visible effects of active ingredients by enhancing delivery to deeper dermal layers. Start with the programs that match your primary concern. Give each sample the full trial period. Document what you observe, not what you hope to see. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Luxury Beauty on a Budget podcast. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so you'll always have something new to dig into. If you got value out of this one, would you mind leaving a 5-star rating and maybe writing a quick review? It really does help other people discover the show when they're searching for honest beauty advice. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe or follow so you get a notification the second a new episode goes live. I'll catch you in the next one.